Drilling fluids touch just about everything in the drilling process. We're here to deconstruct the drilling process and drilling fluid concepts to provide a deeper understanding of our industry. In each episode, we'll share information, talk to interesting people, and maybe share a few stories along the way. Welcome to the Flowline, a production of AES Drilling Fluids, brought to you by Matt Offenbacher and Justin Gauthier.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Flowline. I couldn't be more excited to be here today. We've got another amazing guest. Aside from my lovely co-host Matt Offenbacher, we have Mr. William Petty in the house today. So everyone, please give Mr. Will a warm welcome. And we're kind of continuing on the series, Matt, right? With our, we had the AADE conference, a few weeks back. Some amazing papers were written with some just extraordinary authors such as yourself, Mr. Will. And so, Matt, why don't you kind of open it up and just share, what today's topic was about, and then Will, we can kind of dive into the paper and, shed some good light on all the hard work you did.
Yeah, I'll just tease this out. I don't want to steal any of what Will has to say, so I don't want to go too deep, but. On the podcast, we've talked about things like mechanical specific energy a couple of times and drilling dysfunction. And one thing we've looked at is using EDR data to evaluate how the drilling system is working. And what Will did in particular was look at how lubricants affected the overall drilling system and found ways to sort of quantify that. And then once again, this was really cool because we got to work with the customer. So this paper was done with ExxonMobil. Trevor Olson was our co-author, and he did a fabulous job of sort of breaking down data and kind of as a team, us looking at what we were seeing and him looking at what he was seeing. Like it was a dream, an engineer's dream of just sort of pouring through things and, basically making sense of things that looked quite a bit noisy at first. But Will, maybe you could sort of kick it off and tell us, how this all started and, where we went to.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Looks like you guys are kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here. No, I'm just
all the
playing.
good stuff is at the bottom. But actually, and you can back up just a bit. If you don't mind, just introduce yourself, kind of your role, how long you've been with the company, and then dive into how this all started.
So I'm our technical services specialist. I've been with AES since 2017 now. I was with our former company, FMI, back in 2010 to 2012. Been in the industry for 24 years now this month, and then been in mud and adjacent stuff since 03. And then, let's see, what else? What was I? What do I do here? I kind of bridge the gap between our lab and our field. Go out and problem solve, help on the development team, developing products, and now I get to do a lot of EDR drilling analysis too.
Yeah, and fun fact about Will is he's our in-house investment guy. He's been teaching a lot of the interns how to day trade, so that's really important. I feel like,
and
to
then
add to
they
the
will
value.
always need a job.
Yes, absolutely. It's
Be way over levered, have a lot of. So yeah, it's a great way to retain employees.
I had to
you
throw
make
that in
sure
there.
they have to have a job so they can feed the degenerate gambling.
Right. No, it's comical because when we're not diving into mud things around here, Will's always a good conversation because he's tied into the markets pretty hard, and so I had to throw that in because some good chuckles here and there. But anyway, didn't mean to derail you there, but I had to had to throw that in there.
Oh yeah, it's always a lot of fun. I mean, if you had to look at lab data all day, you'd need something else to kind of break up the monotony of something fun to do with your time, and playing in the market's always kind of fun. You can lose a lot of money there.
And I mean, trading data is probably just as noisy as EDR data for that matter. But,
yeah, they look very similar. It's charts.
Up and down.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of all this noise, so, Will, we test lubricants in the lab. I've had a few rants on this very podcast about that, but could you sort of give us the premise of why we jumped into what we did?
Well, we have two really great lab techs that run our LEMs, our lubricity evaluation monitors. And lubricity meters do a really good job of telling you if a lubricant's going to be good. The problem, the big drawback on those is they can't tell you whether or not lubricant's going to be great. So you really need to have that drilling data to be able to parse out like what's a good lubricant and then what's a fantastic lubricant. And lubricity meters, like I know Matt's a big favorite of telling people like these things are random number generators. And to a degree they are. Like they don't do a very good job of telling us how these things will perform in the field because they just can't replicate those conditions. So we were lucky enough to have Exxon let us take a peek at their drilling data and see what we could do with it. And I took a lot of more personal job of looking at that EDR data because it was on a project that I was involved in, and I was, it's like one of the first products that I got to be on the team to develop. So I had a lot of pride in this product, and I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be a fantastic lubricant. So I did the legwork of looking at the drilling data and then started seeing things, and I was like, man, this is pretty interesting. What do you guys think? And Ricky and Matt took a look at it and they were like, yeah, this is really interesting. And so we digged further, and Exxon got on board, and they were happy to let us, do this paper and tell about the success of this project.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with this that was cool is Exxon sort of the originators of a lot of the they call it fast drill, but it was these principles of evaluating mechanical specific energy to look at drilling dysfunction. They weren't the first. They certainly were the ones that streamlined it. Fred Dupriest, like that was
Right.
he really revolutionized the drilling program, and so it was sort of going back to their roots to run through a lot of this data. Their people are very well versed in it. But so I mean, could you tell us about how we knew we were comparing apples to apples, and then what data we were looking at to do that?
So we had wells in a similar bench. A lot of times the locations were either the same locations or sister locations. They were locations because the way that Exxon was drilling a lot of these wells was block drilling, where they go in and have a ton of different locations all right in a line, and then they drill their particular benches, 4 or 5 or 6 wells on a pad. And so a lot of times we were getting wells that were right next door to each other in the same bench, the same length, utilizing the same BHAs, the same fluid systems. I mean, it was pretty much apples to apples. And we were getting some pretty interesting data back between these two lubricants, where the MSC was a lot lower with one and the ROP was significantly higher. So we kind of started looking at ROP to MSC ratio, basically looking how many feet an hour we were getting per 1,000 PSI of mechanical specific energy. And a couple of those, I think we had one that was 80% higher. It was pretty interesting.
Well, I think sort of the methodology is important here. I mean, lubricants have come and gone, depending on the price of oil. Some people go more towards water-based. And, we kind of go through these cycles. But I feel like every time we get this big wave of water-based mud drilling and lubricant application, we tend to get a small degree better at evaluating these things. But I think as of recently, up until now, it's been, marginal at best. But now I think we have, at least from our perspective, we've got a good way to be able to evaluate these lubricants. So I guess my question would be, is this something like that could be widely adopted, or does it, because like obviously you had you looking at the data, Exxon had to be willing to share the data. How replicable is this if like say, more and more folks wanted to better evaluate lubricants and apply this type of methodology?
I think we're getting to the point where more operators are becoming open to the idea of letting us look at their drilling data. And I honestly think it's pretty smart. Like have someone else look at your data and see what they see, because, I could pull the data and someone from their office could pull the data and, Matt could pull the data. We're all going to see a little bit different things. And once you plot it, it starts getting real interesting, like what the differences are. Like because I may be looking at, 2 or 3 or 5 metrics, and somebody else may look at it and go, "Oh, look at this."
Right. So I guess what type of preparation or training would someone say need to be able to start analyzing this data stream coming in? Because I mean, I imagine it takes quite a bit of man hours to be able to analyze this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty in-depth.
So that's obviously, part of the whole project as well. And, I just kind of wonder too in this, wave of AI that we're talking about, like, do you ever see getting to a point where maybe some technology could help with that
Probably
process?
someone smarter than me, because you have to know, like, utilizing AI in that particular circumstance, you have to know how to but ask the right questions.
Sure.
And I got in depth into the data and started parsing out stuff, but I did
Okay.
it from a methodology of, I've been in drilling for, I got out of the field 2 years ago now. Up until then, I'd spent 22 years in the field drilling wells and seeing it. So a lot of it was just knowing what to look for, your ROP. We got onto MSC and started plotting MSC. And I think you could train AI to kind of parse the data out a little bit faster. Luckily, uh, Sanjit, he's writing us something right now to do some analyzation, and it's coming a lot further than I thought it would in just a couple of weeks. So
Wow.
we could implement that, and that could be a nice tool for the old toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's the thing. Will has had to do the very heavy lifting because we've done this for our customers, but it's like, hey, Will, go do it. And he, all right. And he like shuts his door, and 2 days later comes out, the beard's all frazzled and everything. And he has it, but making sense of the data, like those channels can be quite noisy, and parsing that out and making sure that you're not introducing any sort of bias where it's like, oh, I threw that part out because you have to show an even hand. But it has led to some great conversations, and Will's done some incredible work, but it's almost because now that we've proven it, I feel like and the paper I think is sort of a really great example of the work that Will has done, and that we've been able to collaborate with, where people are starting to expect it.
Yeah.
And so we've got to simplify it, but at the same time, it's creating just another level of interaction. We're talking on a eye-to-eye level with drilling engineers about well engineering. And I think the other part is, our frustration too is when people are like, oh, well, the lubricant didn't really work. And you're like, well, we've drilled, a couple hundred wells with this now, and this is the first time. We need to look at all the factors. And here we can look at the mechanical system and say, okay, well, yeah, the lubricant wasn't going to fix that, but that's not a lubricant issue as much as like we need to look at directional or,
Geomechanical.
yeah, and like we can look at those things with a broader brush than just what's wrong with the mud, which, there's only that's one aspect of the whole system. So it's just that multidimensional approach.
Yeah. So tying it back to the paper specifically, Will, was there anything that stood out, sort of surprised you, anything unexpected kind of come about while you were either writing it, looking at the data, collaborating with Exxon, sort of like any takeaways on that side of things?
It wasn't until like Matt had come along and was like, we should really write this. This was more of an internal thing to start with. It was, we were getting a chance to look at someone else's EDR data and be able to start looking at how, effective and efficient the lubricant was in their project. And then it wasn't until we got probably 20 plus wells deep in this
Yeah.
that we started seeing the same things that Exxon was seeing. They were even going like, man, this is, we're getting 20%, higher ROP, and, a large chunk of our drilling torque has gone down, and this is, made us really efficient. Like they were cutting days on wells. And then Matt was like, hey, we should put this into a paper.
Yeah. No doubt.
But the thing that really kind of stood out to me was I was looking for performance, because like I'm, just about everything that I mess with, I like performance of cars, everything. Like I want to be faster or stronger or better. In some ways,
course.
it's got to break some sort of record. And this thing started drilling ridiculously fast. And we even saw it in a well where we had 2 lubricants in there. Like, we had a lubricant first. They got up to a point where they were just about torque limited, threw our lubricant in there, and it dropped and took off. And I was just like, you guys got to see this crap. This is nuts.
No, the data don't lie.
Yeah. The performance aspect was something that surprised me, because I wanted better. I just didn't know that it was going to be that much better.
Yeah, well, I think this just deserves a lot of attention, especially, as a lot of folks continue to drill with water-based mud. It's just the evaluation piece. And so hopefully we can sort of set the standard, and our customers know that whenever they want to start evaluating lubricants sort of more objectively, that, the experience is there and the methodology is proven. And so I think it was a huge sort of project that hopefully will help move the needle when it comes to this kind of stuff, because anyone who's been in the drilling fluid space long enough, we pull our hair out, because it's a revolving door when it comes to, it could be any specialty type product, to be able to actually evaluate it. So a big shout out to you and the team and Matt to kind of put this all together. Matt, anything else we want to kind of dive into before we let Will get back to it? He's got more EDR data.
I was gonna say,
I call it EDR purgatory, and I joke about it like that. In one way, it's kind of monotonous. I'd rather be sometimes in the lab, playing with development. But at the end of the day, when it comes to evaluating some of their stuff, I do kind of like, locking myself in the office and going over it. But it's when we see something new that's cool. Like, I like to see something new and see something kind of different and be able to go, hey, look at this, guys. It's interesting for me.
Awesome. No, a big shout out to you and the efforts put in. Anything else, buddy?
No, I just congratulations, Will. I mean, I know Will hates presenting, and we made him do it anyways. He did a great job, and it was certainly, on the fluid side, it's hard when you start talking about drilling engineering data. Granted, we had a great partner to tell us we weren't full of it, but you feel like you're stepping out a little bit when you start commenting on somebody else's wheelhouse. And Will took full ownership and went through that with flying colors. Really got a lot of people talking, so I thought it was really cool, and really proud of the work he did.
Awesome. Well, a big shout out to Exxon for supporting us in this endeavor. Will, any closing last words? Any sort of I say not investment advice, it's probably not the right podcast, but no. Again, big shout out to you. All the effort put into it. Are you going to be hitting the sort of the author presentation train, maybe your road show to some degree? I mean, are you into that kind of stuff?
That depends on what, Matt here voluntold me to do.
Right?
Probably.
Yeah. Biggest thing I can say is, operators, share your data with your partners. You may get some interesting insights.
Perfect. Well, with that being said, you can head on to the AADE website, right? If one wants to read the paper or dive into it, or you can reach us on LinkedIn. Matt or I will be happy to share that with you. And connect with Will on LinkedIn as well. He often puts some good content and nuggets out there as well. If not, you can email us at the Flowline podcast at aesfluids.com. Be sure to connect with the AES Fluids page on LinkedIn as well. They put out again, they said we are putting out a ton of good information, the YouTube channel, lots of outlets to continue to learn and educate yourself on drilling fluids. And with that being said, everyone, take care for now. Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please tune in next week for another exciting episode of The Flowline. And remember, may your returns always be full and your trips always smooth. Views expressed in this program belong to participants and not their employees. The program is for informational purposes only and cannot take the place of seeking professional advice. Copyright AES Drilling Fluids.